Welcome to another Liminal podcast, and this is episode 5 on making friends with anxiety with An Bakkes. And the topic for today is belief systems and behaviors and how that relates to anxiety. But before we get to the conversation, I want to remind you of our full day Making Friends with Anxiety workshop that we will be doing in Durbanville, and we've moved the date to the 19th of August. So if you are interested in that, you can go to my website and register so long. That's on liminalcoaching.com. In the bottom left corner, there's a picture of a woman with an umbrella. Just click on that and it will take you to the registration page. You can also there register for the online course that we will be starting on the 3rd of August. That's going to be a Wednesday for 6 weeks for an hour and a half. And we're going to cover all the themes that we've covered on this podcast as well. But it's going to be more interactive and experiential, and you'll be interacting with other people all over the world. But the space is limited, so make sure you get your spot and register. And now I also want to tell you about another workshop that I'm presenting in collaboration with the Thought Leaders Academy in Pretoria on the 4th of August. And it's called Team Innovation Through Improvisation. So I'm going to share some of the philosophies and mindsets and principles of improvisational theatre that helps improvisers to collaborate and work creatively together, and how you can use that as a leader or in your teams also to enhance collaboration and innovation in your teams. And more info about that is on Thought Leaders Academy's website, and that's thoughtleaders.co.za. But let's get to the conversation about making friends with anxiety with An Bakkes. Welcome back, An. And we both were sick last week, so that's why last week there wasn't a Making Friends with Anxiety podcast. So for all our loyal followers, thank you for your patience. And today we're going to be talking about belief systems and behaviors. So, maybe start by just, what's your definition for a belief system?
Why that is such a lovely thing is when I say that to people, there's a little bit of an aha moment. So a belief or a belief system is an assumption that through life and through experiences becomes a fact in our lives. So think about this. It's an assumption that we make true. It was never a fact.
Yeah.
It was purely an assumption that we, through our life's interventions, whatever that might be, made a fact, and we believe that is true until we look at it again and question it.
And everything that confirms that assumption, belief, we see it, and it confirms it for us.
Absolutely. Just to be sure.
Yeah.
A lot of these, and we'll call them limiting belief systems and liberating belief systems, but a lot of these belief systems informs our fears. So it just gives that fear more power, and then just for good measure, we judge it. Can you see the beautiful cage that we create for ourselves?
But it must be somehow useful as well.
Well, you see, belief systems are a very interesting thing. So I categorize belief systems in 3 areas. The one is a belief system that is toxic and not healthy and will never be.
Okay.
Then there's belief systems that they supported you and served you up to a point, but now they've reached their sell-by date because you've grown so much that they don't serve you anymore.
So at some point it was useful to believe in Santa Claus. It made your life as a child interesting or fun, and at some point it's like, okay, it's time to move on from that belief.
Yeah, and it wasn't harmful at all.
Yes.
And and sometimes it comes with a bit of oh no, I'm really disappointed because it was so wonderful to be there. But as
Yeah.
life takes you, you realize that um, Santa Claus to just having a beautiful Christmas with loved ones carries the same message of love. It's just how it's packaged that changes.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then the last category of belief systems are the ones that really liberate us.
Hmm.
Children have this belief system of complete open trust.
Yeah.
Um, they give it. If they've had a healthy and I say normal in inverted commas upbringing, there's that innocence and trust which will always serve them. We just sometimes lose it.
Yeah. So, okay, so toxic belief systems that were useful and not useful anymore, and then liberating belief systems.
Yeah, and we can change them. So the moment we can see a belief system and we are able to suspend our judgment, we can change it.
Okay.
If we choose to. If we choose to.
Yeah. So, can you give an example?
So a belief system that I have not changed yet, that is still true for me, is the belief system that informed my biggest fear when I was afraid is that any child that grows up without a parent, there's deep sadness and concern related to that for me.
Yeah.
And that's also what informed my biggest fear is that my child will grow up without a mom, me dying.
Yes. Yes.
So that's a belief system that I'm still grappling with. And I'm not sure that I want to change it because being a parent also, you know, that belief system is now, as you said earlier, enforced
Yeah.
um, by being a parent. So that's one I chew on that one every now and then to see if it's still true for me. And, you know, if there's any value in my life right now to look at that again. So I'm evaluating some belief systems. So we carry belief systems from when we are very, very tiny. I'll give you a beautiful example. So when I was in matric, and my two sisters were in standard 6 and standard 7, which I think is now grade 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Um, one of them, my matric boyfriends, like a male friend, looked at my two beautiful sisters and turned around and said to me, "Sure, you must be the one with the personality."
Oh no.
I cannot tell you how long, so no trauma,
Yeah.
no big event, for how many years I had to try and reconstruct the fact that I'm not ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And be very clear, he never told me I was not beautiful.
Yeah.
He just insinuated, and I made it all up all by myself.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I carried that for a long, long time. And informed a whole lot of ridiculous behavior. When I was around my sisters, I would behave less than because I thought they were, and they're younger than me,
Yeah.
more beautiful than them. So it's these small things. And I think by that I'm trying to illustrate that belief systems, yes, sometimes they can come with big trauma,
Yes.
but sometimes they just come with being part of your culture.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And some belief systems really, really limit us. For instance, if you think that as a female, you have a certain belief system of what you should or should not be,
Yes.
that can sometimes be very, very limiting.
Yeah.
And it could be supported by your culture, it could be supported by your family, it could be supported by the social environment that you're in.
Mm.
But that could limit you from your full potential. And then if you change that, whatever that belief system is, you might encounter the judgment of yourself and others. And an example that I spoke to you this afternoon. So I spoke to the Cancer Association on Monday evening.
Oh yeah.
And I'm grappling with the belief system that because I haven't had chemotherapy, that I wasn't sick enough because my hair didn't fall out.
Ah. So you.
And I was
Yeah.
terrified that the cancer community would think the same.
Yeah.
And I look at that and I think, so this is how you challenge a belief system. So I sat in front of in the parking lot in front of the hospital, and I was sitting there and I'm thinking, is this belief system true? Is this true? And I looked it in the eye and it's like, no, you're not true. But you are definitely holding me back.
Yeah.
Because it's not true. My journey just looked different from the other person's.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
react so differently to cancer, to chemotherapy, and my mind knows this. But somewhere in my heart or somewhere in my system that says if your hair didn't fall out and you didn't look in a certain way, you weren't sick enough.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Fascinating. Fascinating.
So if you can look at that and not judge it, that's where the power lies.
Yeah, if you can look at your belief system and not judge it.
Absolutely. And question it, deeply question it, because 90% of our belief systems are not true.
Yeah, but it's so difficult to not judge your belief system because, like we said in a previous podcast, you judge things that you're attached to, and we are so attached to our belief systems that it's even hard to get that distance to look at it and be curious about
You are
it.
so true. You are so true. And what then happens is when you are in a space where you can see a certain belief system that limits you, it's that re-choosing of not subscribing to that anymore. That is sometimes takes a bit of practice.
Yeah.
You know? So now I'm going to speak at a cancer summit. And if that belief system raises its head again, I'm going to challenge it again and say, but you're not true. I don't know where you come from yet. And once I know, I will try and heal you. But you're not true. So I'm not going to let you. So again, it's not about not feeling those feelings. It's
Yeah.
just deeply challenging it
Yeah.
and not let it not. And that's where the behavior comes in. Because what happened, and I told you it was quite magical. So I walked in there thinking, so what if these people tell me I wasn't sick enough? What will I do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only thing that came up for me was like, I'll just face it and hear what they have to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that open humility
Yeah.
gave everyone the opportunity to create magic. Because I didn't go in defended or guarded.
Yeah.
I just went in open.
Because usually what people would do is if you're attached to that belief, you would if someone did challenge you, you would probably become defensive and because it's almost like when someone challenges you in that way, almost you start judging yourself according to your own belief system, and then you get defensive.
Absolutely. And remember, we only defend when we feel unsafe. We defend for
Yes.
that's where the word comes from.
Yeah.
I'm defensive because I feel unsafe for some other reason.
Yeah, and that happens either when someone challenges our belief system or actually confirms our belief.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Let's talk. Often my clients say, "Yeah, but what if I'm not perfect?" And I go like, "Okay, what does that mean? Is there a belief system somewhere that says perfect people don't make mistakes? Is that true?" And you can see. I mean, I'm using just one. There's, if I fail, I will be fired.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah.
If I fail, I will be, and there's a whole other challenge that what failure means for different people. If I fail, I'll be perceived as incompetent.
Yeah.
And then people become defensive, and then it just informs that perfectionist behavior that just informs more walls and more limiting belief systems, and they never get past that. They never get to be excellent because they're stuck at perfectionism.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about behaviors. So if you, just make that connection between our beliefs and our behaviors.
A nice tip to find out if someone is tiptoeing on our belief systems is when we become angry, defensive, or when we try and convince people of our way of thinking.
Yeah.
So what happens is, so let's use the perfectionism example. When you're a perfectionist leader, it's very hard So if I have a belief system that perfect means no mistakes, it transforms into blaming behavior. It transforms into people that can never say they're sorry, because then they have to actually admit that they are wrong or that they're not perfect.
Yeah.
It transforms into behavior that people are pedantic and attention to detail where it's not necessarily required. So inappropriate attention to detail. And all of that because they feel unsafe. So the belief system says that a perfect person can't be wrong, or a perfect person can't make mistakes.
Yeah.
So when you're in the world of work, or even in the world of parenting for that matter,
Yeah.
and someone a mistake or something that went wrong in inverted commas, the behavior that's associated with that belief system is blaming. It is inappropriate attention to detail. And you often find that those people can't say, I'm sorry, or I'll look at it again, or I'll come back to you.
Yeah.
They shift. I don't know if you know people like that.
I do.
And that's depending how attached we are to what comes up.
Yeah.
And often, I'm using perfectionism because it comes up so often, is very much associated with a fixed mindset that says, this is how it needs to be, it can't change. But that means no new information can enter the system, and therefore excellence is lost.
Yes. And that again leads to attachment, or that is attachment, and leads to judgment, which leads to anxiety.
Absolutely. So the other one is, let's say that I'm not good enough if I don't have a degree.
I've heard that one a few times.
I have a lady that is in a general manager position, that she's one of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
And there's belief system somewhere that says, if I don't have a degree, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
But just to be sure, her environment enforces that. The company that she works in enforces that.
That belief system.
Yet, absolutely, yet she has been the top performer the last 3 years and the only person in the company without a degree. So then I go back and I say, look at the evidence.
Yeah.
Look at the evidence. Is this true? And then the answer is no, it's not true.
So how much is her belief driving her performance, though?
That is such a good question. So when we are driven by that fear of not being good enough, or that fear of overcompensating, then do you know those people who tries too hard?
Yeah, I'm one of them.
And we over-justify. We want to prove ourselves so badly that it ends up not in good performance. It just ends up in our ego and all tumbled in our anxiety.
Yes.
Because, the harder we try, the more anxious we become, the harder we try. So we feed that element rather than just looking at it and say, through all of this, I have done such a good job.
Yeah.
A degree could help me, but it won't define me.
Yeah.
So I'm not advocating that she should or should not get a degree.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is her performance currently is not guided by the fact that she has or does not have one.
Yeah.
She's clearly very confident.
Yeah, even though she feels like she needs to prove herself now. She performs really well. She could perform that just as well without doing it from this anxious place of, I need to prove myself.
Exactly, and that's where burnout comes from.
Yeah. So if she keeps
to myself first, then some to other people.
Yeah.
So it's the gift that keeps on giving in an unhealthy way.
Yeah. And how do you can switch that and because sometimes people, I don't know if you said that in an earlier podcast, but people are like, well, if I'm not anxious, I'm going to lose my edge. I'm not going to perform as well because it's actually helping me. But you
can't see me, but I'm nodding my head. I'm nodding my head vigorously.
So how can you keep that same level of performance, but from a different place.
Well, you are tapping into another belief system. You are tapping into the belief system that says, I can only perform when I'm anxious.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
True, because in my performance, I've also burnt out, or in my performance, I've also become depressed, or in my performance, I've also become detached and numb.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is looking at what really drives me, because if anxiety is my only driver, I'll question that.
Mm.
Often we have type A personalities that people are driven because they want to be driven. And then you start saying, but what if I believe I'm good enough? What would my drive look like then?
Yeah.
So how we change that belief system is I have a lady that I work with that she doesn't particularly enjoy writing, but she's very artistic.
Okay.
So I've asked her to paint a painting that would look like if she was driven from a place of good enough, what that would look like.
Yeah.
And another painting or a sketch or whatever she does, that was what driven looks like from a place of not good enough and anxiousness.
Yeah.
And the one was gray and hard lines, and the other one was light and pastels and flowing lines. And you could see how she transformed in that process. And she took her drawing and she pasted it next to her PC at her office to remind herself that when she's and this is where the practice comes from. This is where the deep choice comes from. That when you're stuck with that belief system, it's created some neural patterns in our brains. So to change that neural pattern takes re-choosing.
Yeah.
So to look at her creation of what drivenness looks like when it comes from good enough, and to make different decisions. So there's very practical ways to display this if you want to.
Yeah, how can we make this practical? So for example, someone listening now thinks, oh, yeah, I think I have a limiting belief about money or relationships or something. How do you get that distance and change the behavior?
The first question you ask when you stumble upon a belief system is this true? And sometimes we have people that are very attached to their belief systems because they've been really hurt.
Yeah. Yeah,
Making
like
decisions.
you can't trust anyone, or
Exactly.
if I let anyone too close to me, they will hurt me.
And some of that could be true for that person, but it's not a universal truth.
Yeah. So
You get people,
is this true 100% of the time? Is this belief always true, without a doubt,
and for everyone,
and for everyone?
because everyone won't hurt you.
Yeah.
Yes, you may have been hurt, and I'm not saying that one should take that lightly.
Yeah.
The thing is just, what can you do to heal it? So if we say it is not true, everyone will not hurt me, what then? What does life look like then? Because sometimes we use our limiting belief systems as excuses to change and crutches. Because, there's an example of a female, I'm using this, please, this is very stereotypical, and this is a hypothetical thing. But if you're in a relationship where you're physically abused, some of the people that are being abused don't leave because it's familiar.
Yeah.
Not because they like being there, it's just familiar.
Yeah.
And the unknown is too scary.
Yes. Yeah.
So sometimes our limiting belief systems are just that familiar. An Afrikaans girl should be seen and not heard. It's a belief system that we grew up with as children. And sometimes that's just something to hide behind and not live your full potential.
Yeah.
So those ones are particularly hard to, I nearly want to say, to dislodge them and just to take a little bit of that power away, because it's not true. And then the question is, if this is not true, what then? And that is open to any possibility, because then you can start being who you want to be, who you choose to be.
So I once in a coaching session kind of discovered this technique also to overcome limiting beliefs is to write down. And this one is specifically around money. To write down, what are the things that you believe about money? And there's these beliefs like money is the root of all evil, or
Yeah.
it's it's not spiritual to have lots of money or whatever. And then you say
Yeah.
write down all those beliefs, and then next to it you write down the opposite of that. What would be the opposite belief of that? Be of that.
Mm.
And then in a third column, you write down what would be an integration of both of those beliefs. What would be and that I think is kind of a liberating belief where you incorporate, because often a belief is, yes, it is sometimes true, but sometimes the opposite is also true. And what would be a belief that could hold both of those beliefs? Like a transcend and include a non-dual belief almost.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you one that is very pertinent. People who's never been sick, there's a belief system that cancer kills.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's true,
Mm.
but often it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that willingness to look at it and go like, but I want to be part of the it's not.
Mm.
I want to be part of those. I want to be part of those statistics. I've survived. And I mean, whether you survive cancer, whether you survive a job that you don't like, whether, it is about that thing that says, if I don't judge this and I want to create an opportunity, what is the opposite that I can believe in?
Mm.
Because sometimes we say to people, please create a liberating belief system. And then they go, I actually cannot do that. I cannot go that far. It's just too hard. You've just asked me to look at my biggest belief system that anchors my whole life, and now you want me to change that?
Yeah.
So then I often say to them, so what is the closest you can get to a liberating belief system that you can believe?
Mm.
That's
Mm.
true for you until you are integrated enough to take it a little bit further and a little bit further.
Huh. So how would you define a liberating belief?
A liberating belief system is not a fact. It is a nebulous concept that you keep on checking again and again and again for truth, and that you can create from.
Ah.
Why I say it's not a fact, because facts are static.
Yeah. Can you give an example?
To me, I'm struggling with what a perfect mother looks like, and I've scratched that because I've come to learn that perfect is really limiting rather than liberating.
Mm. Mm.
So at the moment, the closest I can get to my own true north and truth is that a good mother is an available mother, is physically and emotionally available.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
They're 24/7. It doesn't mean I don't live my life. It means my children know that I'm available to them.
Mm. Mm. I like how you changed a perfect mother to a good mother.
Oh my hat! If I wanted to be a perfect mother, I'll be anxious, and then I will start parenting my children from my wounds,
Yeah.
not from my ability and love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because all I'll be focusing on is how I'm not good enough
Yeah.
and how I've. So, and the other thing, while we're speaking about parenting, and I'd like to take this thread through to our entire lives, is that our children and the people around us sometimes needs to see that we are not without flaws, because that is real. We are sending them into a world that is not flawless, and we want them to be able to cope with that. We want them to know that they're going to go into a world that has many aspects,
Yeah.
and is not without flaw, and to give them the ability to deal with that.
Yeah.
And as a leader, to the people that you are leading, to give them the ability to think and deal with things in a liberating way, and not let that threaten you as a leader.
Yeah. 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 I always
tell my wife that it's not about, being perfect in front of your kids all the time and not, not get angry or not lose your temper, but it's more about your recovery. And if they can see you lose your temper, but they can see you recover again, they can see how you, apologize, or that's how they learn. They don't learn from not seeing you lose your temper. They learn from seeing you lose it and then recover again and, restore the relationship.
Absolutely. And that goes for parenting, that goes for leading, whether you lead a non-profit, whether you lead a very profitable organization. If you don't make a mistake every now and then, how on earth will people? And that's what you said. It's not about what happens, it's how you recover from it. It's how you deal with it. That is the true learning.
Yeah.
So, our children are so great. I sat with my coach one day and I spoke to her about my eldest son and how I'm trying to do certain things for him. And she kept quiet for a long time and she said to me, "Do you know that you are robbing your child of his journey?" And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
What?" And I became so defensive. And the moment I become defensive, I go like, "Oh, clearly someone has touched something here."
Yes.
And I'm not being supportive on his journey. And the same for when you are a parent, when you are a leader. How do you support people on their journeys? By being open, vulnerable, and authentic.
Yeah.
And often there's another belief system that says, when I'm vulnerable, I'm weak.
Yes.
When I show emotion, I'm weak.
Yeah.
And I love to challenge that, because is that true? And then that comes from, but my dad said I'm never allowed to cry. Sure. And that was true for your dad. How does it feel for you? What is working for you never to show your emotions? What hard work is that?
Yeah, and I think it's important to ask that question, what are you getting from holding on to this belief system? Because it's still giving us something. That's why we're holding on to it. And like you said
Absolutely.
earlier, it might be some sense of security because it's familiar.
A false sense of security often, but
And
also,
false sense of control.
and you're saying the perfect word, because remember we came back to say the opposite of control is trust. And when you are ready to see these limiting belief systems, also remember that when you've seen them, that means you're ready to change them.
Yeah.
It may not be easy and it may not be comfortable, but when you see them, if you choose to, sometimes we hold on to things because it's just too hard. And another nice question to ask is, what about this belief system keeps me what I perceive as safe? And those belief systems of what does failure look like? What does incompetence look like? The fear of failure, the fear of being brilliant, the fear of being seen as a fraud.
Yeah.
All carry elements of that. And I think that the thing I want to end off with is, if we can try and see our belief systems without any shame, because shame keeps us stuck.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I work with clients, then the one lady said to me, "I've believed this for 30 years. Are you telling me that the last 30 years was a waste of time?" No, not at all. And she came back and she was quite judgmental in terms of, "But look at all these mistakes I made." But you make decisions with the information you have.
Yeah.
And when your information changes, you can look at new decisions.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I always think, like, if I discover a belief, and I think I've said this in a previous podcast, but it's when I discover my beliefs, I had a belief system that wasn't serving me anymore, and I have a new belief system. I wonder how long it will be when I discover that there's more, that this belief system is also flawed and there's actually more.
And when you grow, there will always be more. That's why I
Uh,
say a liberating belief system isn't always fact.
exactly. I
It
love
is
what you
true for
said
now
about that.
until you
Yeah.
change.
So never to get too attached to it, like, this is the truth. I have it
No,
figured
and
out.
always check it out.
Yeah.
My worst moments have been the moments when I thought I've arrived,
Yeah.
and then I realized,
Yes.
no, at the wrong station. I changed the question.
Yeah. Thank you, Anne, and I look forward to our next one, and it's going to be our last one, and it's about the body, that and anxiety.
Absolutely.
That's going to be very interesting. And remember to go to my website, liminalcoaching.com, if you want to register for the workshops, full day workshop. So on my website, and in the left corner, there's a picture of a woman with an umbrella. If you click on that, will take you to the registration. You can register there for the full day workshop and also for the online course that's going to be over 6 weeks, hour-and-a-half session. You can also register for that on that registration page. Till next time.
Thank you. And thank you for doing all this hard work with the administration around the course. I really appreciate that.
No problem. All right. Ciao.
Till next time.
Bye.